Hi.
Hi,
Thank you for joining me today.
thank you for having me.
I'm so happy that we can finally make this happen because
Yes,
this conversation is so important.
no, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so why don't you just give us a nice introduction for all the dancers who are tuning in now because you are the expert of yourself. So I'd love for you to share that first.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Yuriko Kajiya. I'm a principal dancer with Houston Ballet. I have been dancing professionally for 20, going to 24, 24 years. So before I joined Houston Ballet, I'm from Japan, but I went to Shanghai Dance School in China to train for 6 years till the age of 16. And from there, I trained one more year in National Ballet School in Canada. And then from there, I went to American Ballet Theater in New York. So previously, before I joined Houston Ballet, I was dancing with ABT for 13 years.
Ah, very nice. At what year did you move to Houston?
Houston, 2014. So this is actually
Mm.
exactly my 10th years
Ah,
with Houston Ballet.
very nice. Yuriko, I'd love to hear about how your relationship with dance and with ballet has shifted. You definitely, from training to your professional years, have delved in quite a bit of many different worlds. And I'd love to hear
Mhm.
how your relationship with dance has really shifted among all of these different stages of your career.
It's a big shift. You don't realize when you're at that in that moment. I think when you're a student, I felt that your goal at that time for me was like I went to the competition in Switzerland, Prix. So when I was a student, that became my goal. But when you become professional, you know that is definitely not the goal. So after you do the competition and I joined the company and you realize there's so much more to just winning the competition. There's a whole life ahead of you. And another big thing that I realized after joining ABT, because when as a student, I think most of the students probably feel like, oh, if I join the company, I want to do, I don't know, Swan Lake or Romeo and Juliet, one of those big parts. But you realize after you join the company, not everyone has the same goal, and which is perfectly um, great to have different goals for everyone. I thought everyone had the same goal, but I realized, I think after joining the company, I realized there's a life outside of studio.
Mm.
That's a big opener for me because I think when I was a student, I was such a bunhead. I
Mm.
didn't know anything besides ballet.
Yeah.
And after I joined in the company, you realize, well, you do have to pay for your own rent and you have to pay for the food and you have to become an adult when you join the company. And after joining the company, I realized there are dancers for, let's say, for women, they want to just have a family, and after having a family their goal becomes not become a, let's say, principal dancer or do the leading role. They want to balance between the ballet and the outside life. And I thought that was very interesting as a young dancer, is that, oh, everyone has a different goal and you have to have a life outside of ballet also. And
Mm.
that, and having the outside life translate into the studio and can make you a much better dancer and mature you differently.
Yeah, you bring up such a good point because it goes into my next question, which was, what are some of those obstacles that you experienced throughout those shifts? And it sounds like you mentioned a couple in there. First was just making space for the fact that you're recognizing that so many dancers have different goals and different paths that
Mm-hmm.
they want to take their career down. And the biggest of all, and this is the challenge that I see with a lot of the younger dancers I work with, is just knowing that life outside the studio can really strengthen their work inside the studio because we fixate on our technical abilities and our progression, forgetting that we are so much more than just a dancer.
Yes. Mm-hmm. For
Mm-hmm.
sure.
And bringing those experiences to the stage now as a principal, bringing those experiences to your roles.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I felt like when I was younger, I just wanted to dance. And I think that is totally normal. But like you were saying about the obstacle, as a professional, and not just professional, but as a young dancers also, I think it's totally normal as a human being to want to compare. And when you bring that into a positive way, that's great, but that can often make it to very negative because you start to see a lot of negative things. And I think as a dancer, it's difficult because you are always facing, I don't want to say criticism, but a lot of the teachers tell you, more turn out or turn your feet or do this, do that. That's often because I teach also, and that's coming from as a teacher wanting to get the dancers better, and because we see potential, that's why we say things. But as I think as a young dancer, you can often hear it as a negative, but you have to turn everything into obviously positive. The teachers will say it because they want you to get better. But going back to what I was trying to say is that, sorry, my cat. um, so the compare to wanting to compare, and I now that I dance for 20 plus years, I can really see my path and think that I wanted to be the same as some of the other dancers that join at the same time in the company. And I would think, oh, why did so and so get this role, but I didn't? I'm sure a lot of the younger dancers can relate to that in your own studios or young dancers joining the company. Why did so and so get this, but I don't? And so and so has been here for how many years, but I have been there longer, but I'm still not getting the role. I think those things can really get into your head, but I think I want everyone to realize that everyone's different in a way of how you grow as a dancer. Some dancers can really, just like some younger dancers can become an adult body much sooner than the others. You just have to, everyone has a different process. And I want to say I was a slower. So I felt like just now I can see everything all together and now it's becoming one. But it just took me much longer. But I understand at that time as a young dancer, you feel like, oh, why isn't everything getting so just as fast as others? But you everyone just like the turtle and the rabbit story,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Some are just a little slower,
Yeah.
and you have to just accept the fact it's okay to be different, and that make you special.
Yeah. And I love that point that we are all different in our journeys,
Yes.
and it doesn't necessarily matter how long it takes,
Mm-hmm.
but that you're utilizing that path. And every correction that you get, and every comment or piece of advice that you get from your teachers, utilizing that to fuel growth rather than kind of fixating on it as
Yeah.
criticism. I really like that point of advice, because I think that dancers, both pre-professional but also professional, who are maybe newly
Mm-hmm.
professional dancers, can face some of the toughest criticism and self-criticism as well. And just understanding that even though they've just started their professional track, there's so much growth that can happen along, that road as well. So it's really important to have um, that acceptance of that.
Yes, exactly. As I have danced for many years, it's almost like I want more. Like when I'm in the studio, if I don't get any corrections, because nobody's perfect. And I think what attracts me for ballet as a dancer is like there is no cap goal. You can get better and better. There is no limit. You can be who you want as much as you want to be. And when you stop getting corrections, it's actually harder.
Mhm.
It's I think it's as a teacher when I teach also myself, it's you give as many corrections I want to give, let's say the one student, it's because I see potential, because I want this person to get better. So actually a positive when you get
Yeah.
a lot of corrections. I think that means you can grow that much more.
Absolutely. And, moving forward, I would love to hear about at what point in your dancing did you make a connection of the way that you were perhaps treating your body specifically around food and fueling your body, and that connection with, oh, fueling my body is actually supporting my dancing, not hindering my dancing. So I'd love to hear about that.
As for food, I realized so when I was training in China, the schedule in China was very hard. I was in the studio in 6 in the morning till like at night, and I loved it. I loved the process, but I realized after, let's say, I left China, that my burning was so much more than what I was getting. So unfortunately, I realized I stopped growing. So I stopped my growth.
Mhm.
So that definitely is a big impact on because of my fuel getting the food. So I definitely always want to, when I get the chance to talk to younger dancers, a lot of them wants to control their weight and how they look, but they need to realize that, especially at a young age, when you're a teenager or younger, everything you take in is to become an adult and become for you to grow as an adult, and you need all of that to nutrition. My cat wants to be in it. So it's hard. I understand some of the younger dancers face. They want to look a certain way, and they need to realize that. Oh, sorry.
I like having that alive.
They need to realize that the nutrition and how when you don't have the fuel, to besides being a professional, to be a younger dancer, you need to have a proper body to become a dancer. So you need all of that to grow. I know younger boys in my Houston Ballet Academy, they grow so fast and the muscle mass is not catching up. So they're trying to eat all of this fuel to get to their body. It's the same thing with all of the younger dancers. They need to have all the nutrition to um, have that body. And as for professionals, your our dancing time is so much longer than when you're students. And I I struggle with how much snacks I need to bring to the studio because I am very often hungry. So I try to pack as much snack as I can, but at the same time, I cannot be having a big meal for lunch just because certain dance that I have to do or the partnering, it's a little uncomfortable when you have too much food. But um, I try to have a more proper meal at night, but lunchtime is maybe slightly lighter.
Yeah.
So
And this
I
brings
went
up
so many different ways. Sorry.
No, no, that's perfect. But it definitely brings up most of the challenges with the dancers that I work with who are in their pre-professional programs, but also with the professional dancers too, just the challenge of eating midday because of time constraints, accessibility, the difficulty in being able to keep this stuff on hand. So we're always working on those like more energy dense options that we can just get in, even if it's every few hours until we can have those recovery meals later on. But what you really said here that I want to focus on is just the need for fuel and the need for dancers to realize that they are burning so much in their day-to-day routine. So making sure that food is part of the conversation and that nutrition is part of the conversation is really obviously why I do all of this. And I'd love to have the professionals on like you to just kind of reassure those messages about how, we're not going to get far in the longevity of our dancing if we're not necessarily setting our bodies up with that energy. So on that note, do you have any specific like pre-performance or even post-performance rituals that you like to focus on before dancing and after dancing?
Before, let's say, a big performance, things like a full-length ballet like Sleeping Beauty, Swan Lake, which is it burns a lot of calories, and I'm on stage a lot and I sweat a lot, and I'm very often before the show I'm always thinking, okay, what if I get hungry after a second act? So I before a big performance I always have rice. Carb is such a big part of my diet, and I love carb. Sometimes maybe I have too much carb, but if I can, I always have rice, and if I can reach the rice, I will always have pasta. So that's one of the big thing for me, that I have to have some kind of carb before the show. And after the performance, it takes longer to unwind. But my big thing that I always want to have is I love ice cream, and after the show, I will have a big bar of ice cream to not to celebrate, but just unwind. Just I can just zone out and eat my ice cream.
Yeah, that mindless experience is probably much needed after having to put so much effort into being on stage. Absolutely. So my final question, how I'd love to just wrap this up, would be how, it's a general one, but take with it wherever you want to take with it. How would you define what it means to be the healthy dancer?
Healthy dancer, such a big word. I think if you ask me 10 years ago, I would probably say, oh, eating is very important, which is, I'll probably go to more specific, like food or this and that. But I think mind is a biggest thing for me, because when you have a healthy mind, I think you'll eat better. You can think better and you sleep better. A lot of things becomes more well-rounded, I feel. Going back to different stories, but when I was younger, I had a few friends around me that had an eating disorder, and I didn't really understand the eating disorder at the time, and I realized afterwards that it had a lot to do with the mindset that became that way. So when you have a happy mind and positive thinking, you can really see things clearly. And when I talk to my friends that had a eating disorder, to talk to them later, they can see what wasn't great about what they were doing, but I think because they didn't have a healthy mind at that time, so they couldn't think straight, and that went to that route. And so I feel like when you have a healthy mind, you can, not just for eating, but sleeping, and also when you have a happy life outside of the studio, you become more positive also in the studio, and you dance better.
Absolutely. The two really go hand in hand. Having a healthy mind needs to be fueled adequately, right? That's what I often say. It's so hard if we're under fueling to even think straight. And then when we can't think straight, it's hard to make those mindful decisions or incorporate that, those gentle nutrition strategies to support our energy and muscle recovery and all that great stuff. So it all goes hand in hand, which is exactly what you're saying. Oftentimes I like to say the healthy dancer thinks about all facets of their life, which is exactly what you said in regards to sleep patterns, eating patterns, socialization, being able to thrive inside the studio just as much as we can thrive outside the studio. So it all comes together. And Yuriko, you shared so much beautiful insight with us today. Thank you for that.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And I would love to stay connected. But until then, we will talk soon.
Yeah.